Early but promising signs that the pandemic is starting to plateau here in the United States, at least for now. Schools debate when and how to bring students back. And Tom Brady going to his 10th Super Bowl. Here's what you need to know. Good morning. This is Cheddar's Need2Know podcast for Monday, January 25th. I am Jill Wagner with Carlo Versano. Good morning, Carlo.
Good morning, Jill. Did you have a good weekend?
Same weekend.
Same.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really do much. We didn't leave the house. It was freezing cold.
Yeah, it's cold.
In the middle of a pandemic, but it was.
Other than that,
past 4 a.m. So I guess that's a good thing.
That's the only thing that matters. By the way, I have this new setup. The Cheddar IT guys, the Cheddar tech guys, who are awesome. They came this weekend and gave me this whole new, basically flash camera in my apartment. So now I know how you feel being like on-air talent and having these bright lights and high-definition camera in your face every morning. It's not that fun, I gotta say.
Okay, so a little behind the scenes, Carlo has been kind of complaining since since he put those lights on. Okay, so that's what this is about, that you have a whole new setup.
I have the whole new
it's
setup.
Not just
so
the ring light.
I definitely. Yeah, no, it looks better. And I was going off my MacBook, laptop camera, which was not nearly good enough. So now this is like the whole professional thing, and I don't like looking at myself this early in the morning. But hey, it's all good.
Well, most people are listening to us, so all good.
Yes, that's true. Thank God.
All right, almost exactly a year after the first confirmed infection in this country, the U.S. has now reached 25 million coronavirus cases. But vaccinations are accelerating. Hospitalizations are either plateauing or dropping in most of the country. President Biden will be reinstating travel restrictions on foreigners from dozens of countries that were lifted in the final days of the Trump administration. The White House expected to add South Africa to the list because of concerns about the variant or mutation that is spreading in that country. Scary stuff, Carlo, what we found out this weekend.
These mutations, yeah, we should probably spend a little more time on them maybe tomorrow. The South Africa and the Brazil variants, they do worry me, just based on how they're spreading in those countries and how they're reinfecting people who are already, had been sick and recovered, which suggests that they're resistant to antibodies. These travel bans, though, I'm all for them if they're useful, but I don't see how they're useful unless they are completely strict, right? These bans still allow U.S. citizens to come in here from those countries. So it seems to me like unless you're just doing a straight up, like you cannot travel into the United States if you're in South Africa or have been in South Africa, then I don't really see what good they're going to do.
So the issue with it, Carlo,
yeah.
just on the variants, because I do think it's important to mention, Boris Johnson, the UK Prime Minister, came out this weekend to say that the UK variant, which is already confirmed here in the United States, is not just more contagious. So the original thinking was that it was more contagious, and therefore more people get it, and that's why it would eventually mean more deaths, because hospitals would get more crowded just because of more cases. That is not true. It's actually, according to many of the latest studies that they've done out of the UK, it is more deadly. So it's because
I'm glad you mentioned that. I forgot.
It's because of the way it just is making people sicker. I guess there's a more of that viral load that we talk about, like that. Virus is able to replicate itself more quickly in your body. So not only are deaths up in terms of the rate, but I would imagine people are getting sicker, right? Like the crazy thing about coronavirus is that some people have a headache for 2 days and other people are dying from it. What scares me now is like the long haulers. Does this mean more long haulers? Does this mean you're going to get sick for 4 weeks instead of 2 weeks? I mean, this is actually kind of frightening. One of the questions that I had been asking since we learned about these more contagious variants was, in a practical sense, what does that mean for us? Should we be staying 12 feet away from people? What should we be doing? Because we've sort of all have our COVID routine set. The thinking now, 2 masks. Layer up the masks. Health experts, that is the advice that they're giving. So if you've just been wearing like one disposable mask or one cotton mask or even like a turtleneck up over your mouth, not enough. If you're going to be out, just so you're going grocery shopping, 2 masks better than 1. This virus, it's more dangerous now. So that just some practical advice for people.
So like you're saying, like blue surgical and then like the KN95 over it. That's the move.
Yes. I mean, look, I don't know if you noticed at the inauguration, they were all wearing 2 masks. Everybody. I
didn't actually, really.
Yes. I mean, I noticed they must have had something that was like taped to their face and then a mask over it. So if you look closely at some of the pictures, you'll see, especially some of like the dignitaries, right? The people who didn't need to take their masks off, is that a lot of them were wearing 2 masks. Look, I'm crazy about this stuff. I wear like 3 masks if I can. The problem is 3 masks, they start to come off and it's almost counterproductive. But I don't know, just some good advice that I saw, because that's what I had been wondering for a while.
Yeah, I don't want to scare people, because these variants are, I mean, they are scary. So, but there isn't any reason to believe that these vaccines are not going to be effective, even if they lose a little bit of efficacy against them. We are trending in the right direction. The Johnson & Johnson results, we're expecting to get those, I think, probably not this week, probably next week. That's the big thing I'm waiting for. I really think the Johnson & Johnson is going to be a game changer. It's that one shot. It's going to get a ton more vaccine into the supply. People aren't going to have to go back for the boosters. We really have to get to 2 million vaccines a day as a baseline, and we're going in the right direction. We're getting there, slowly but surely.
Right. So the Biden administration has set this goal of 100 million shots in the first 100 days. Okay, just to be clear, that's the pace we're currently on. There was a couple of days ago that we hit 1 million shots, 1 million vaccines, not full vaccinations, but 1 million shots administered in one day. So I say aim higher, Joe Biden. Like, what are you doing? Yeah. I mean, hopefully the Biden administration is just trying to set this bar low so that they can exceed it. But in my mind, 100 million shots would be a huge failure, to tell you the truth, because that is our current level. That is the level at which the Biden administration came in and said the Trump team left them zero plan. I mean, the Trump plan was just to get a vaccine approved and then leave it up to the states. But again, the Biden administration came in and they said on the record, or at least to CNN, that there was a worse plan. There was zero plan for vaccine administering. So, okay, if at no plan we were at 1 million a day, then why is our goal still 1 million a day? I don't know. To me,
politicians
like, that doesn't
like to
make
underpromise
sense.
and overdeliver.
And again, that 100 million shots is 50 million people, because it's 2 shots to be fully vaccinated. Dr. Fauci and Dr. Burks, I don't know if you saw, they were both on Face the Nation. Burks making some news for kind of what she was saying were these 2 streams of info that were coming into President Trump, and for her somewhat controversial role where she was basically seen in lockstep with the Trump administration on COVID and their response.
I actually feel bad for her, because she black. Dr. Fauci has not, even though he's arguably been the face of the worst public health crisis in American history. But Dr. Burks has taken much more flack, and she is really, she's not a political person. I mean, regardless of like how she tried to handle the Trump thing, she is a sort of like brilliant public health official with decades of experience with the AIDS crisis, known as a hard worker, and I sort of feel bad that she's going to end up, like, her legacy is going to sort of be tied to the Trump administration. But that's what happens, I guess, right? She didn't do a particularly good job of breaking out of that.
And she was so instrumental in the fight against HIV. I mean, she has a long storied career. Yeah. She talked about her hesitancy to even get involved with COVID. And she talked about how she knows that her career is pretty much over at this point. But I think there are real questions. It's like, look, when politics is politics, and a lot of people always come out after an administration and say, they leak stuff, and there's always questions of, well, why didn't you speak up during it? But political stuff is one thing. But when you're talking about deaths and people's lives, I don't know, did you have more of a responsibility to come out and say, the president is pulling up a graph that was not one of the graphs we showed him, right? I mean, she got a lot of flack for.
Yeah, it's one of the great debates. Yeah.
She got a lot of flack for being at that press conference when the president talked about ingesting disinfectant as a way to fight the virus, and
Right.
not speaking up more actively about it. But you're in a tough spot, right? And she said, I never even saw the president. We in our minds, they were talking before the briefing and they were having all of these meetings. She's like, I didn't see the president for months. And she hadn't seen him in months. So it's
Right.
not like she had this direct line to him. Certainly, her legacy, one to be debated for sure. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's talk about schools for a minute. Superintendents across the country weighing the risks of returning to in-person classes against the risks of long-term remote learning. Las Vegas now moving to reopen schools after a rash of student suicides. At least 18 students in Clark County, Nevada, including a 9-year-old, have taken their lives in the last 9 months. New Jersey quietly loosened its restrictions on when schools should reopen. In Chicago, teachers are defying an order to return to the classroom until vaccinations are more widespread.
President Biden he already signed an executive order last week to establish national guidelines for reopening schools. The White House pushing for $130 billion in aid as part of this $1.9 trillion stimulus package, which, by the way, is already starting to collapse in Congress. This thing is not going to get the bipartisan support that I think a lot of people were hoping for. Doesn't mean it's dead. It doesn't mean there's not other ways to do it, but I don't think it's going to be this big bipartisan bill. By the way, I want to mention one thing. It has nothing to do with COVID, really, but I thought it was very funny to see Biden this weekend. He was like out on the town. He went to church. He made a stop at a bagel place in D.C.
It's called Call Your Mother? I love the name. I think it's called Call Your Mother. It's a Jewish deli, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a deli. So I obviously don't live in Washington, but I have a lot of friends who moved there after college, and they've said to me, like, one of the weirdest things about the Trump years was that he literally not even once ever went anywhere, right? He never visited anywhere in Washington that wasn't his hotel. And people in Washington are used to seeing the president out, jogging or seeing a show or stopping at a deli for lunch. So I think, it's just a sort of an interesting change, right? And I think it's a good thing for that city to have a president who treats it like a place where he actually lives.
Absolutely. Speaking of Trump, the GOP basically in an open civil war over what to do about him. The Senate impeachment trial set to start on February 9th, though a growing number of Senate Republicans opposing holding a trial at all, and it's increasingly unlikely that there will be I think it's 17 Republican votes that would be needed to convict and bar Trump from running for public office again. New reporting over the weekend in the Washington Post and the New York Times revealed that Trump was planning to replace the acting attorney general and use the Justice Department to undo Georgia's election results. That plan reportedly put to a stop only when the Department of Justice's top leaders said that they would all resign in protest. Incredible.
That was a big story. That was an amazing story. If you haven't read it on the New York Times, I think they broke that on Friday night. I was probably a little cavalier on Friday when I said that I did. You asked me if I had any thoughts on the impeachment trial, and I was just like, no. I mean, I don't really care about it because it's not going to succeed. But it is important to acknowledge that all of the reporting that has come out from the transition period, basically the period from November 3rd until January 6th. Yeah, all of it suggests that the president of the United States was determined to do whatever it took to overturn an election, right? Those plans ended up culminating in an insurrection that left 5 people dead, including a police officer. Let's not forget. And I don't want to forget about that, and I don't want to sort of brush it aside. By the way, Kevin McCarthy, one of the top Republicans in Washington, having the gall this weekend to say that every American holds some blame for what happened at the Capitol. Excuse me?
What did I do?
I didn't do anything. I don't have any blame. Absolutely not. God, some of these guys, I mean, shame. Bring back shame to this country. People like this should be forced into exile, and they actually think they can go and meet the press or whatever and tell me that I had something to do with that when he was the actual one who did have something to do with it. Okay, anyway, what was I saying? Trump, look, he needs to be held accountable for his role in the Capitol. Impeachment, the Senate trial, I don't think it's going to work, but whatever.
I mean, look, it is a shame though, because I'm so like, I don't want to talk about it anymore, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I
that's
think
really
that's the
ridiculous.
thing, that so many of us are just exhausted,
Yeah.
and it's refreshing to just see. I want a good old fashioned policy debate. Like, give me a debate on the stimulus package and why it's too much money or not enough money and not targeted enough, or give me that argument. I'm so sick of talking about impeachment and Trump. But again, what we've mentioned yet last week, the actions should be, you need to be held accountable and make sure that this stuff doesn't happen again.
Yes.
Okay, overseas, more than 3,000 people were arrested in more than 100 cities in Russia over the weekend during large-scale protests against the government, the largest seen there in years. Tens of thousands of Russians braved freezing temperatures to rally in support of Alexei Navalny. And despite aggressive police crackdowns, the protests spread across 11 of Russia's time zones, signaling just how unpopular the Putin regime has become as he enters his third decade in power.
Think about that for a second. Putin came to power when I was in ninth grade. I mean, why, we talk about how we get sick of politicians here after 4 years. Imagine in Russia, this guy has been in charge, basically a despot for going on 22 years now. The people who came out to protest this weekend across Russia, the weather in some places -25. Knowing a lot of them were going to get arrested by the Russian secret police. I mean, they're truly brave actions. I hope it's the start of something, but we have seen protest movements in Russia fizzle out in the past when the Kremlin decides to really crack down. Mad props to the people out there who came out and really showed that government, that they're sick of what they're having to put up with.
Alexei Navalny obviously is nervous that he's going to get killed while behind bars. And he came out this weekend, I don't know if you saw this, and was basically like, I'm not suicidal. If I die, it was not suicide. And he was trying to basically say, he proactively kind of getting in front of it, which just tells you this guy, I mean, he was poisoned, which is miraculous that he even survived. And then went back.
And then going back. Yeah.
It's just incredible. Okay,
Really
Tom Brady, on some lighter news. Tom Brady going to his 10th Super Bowl at the age of 43. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to host the Kansas City Chiefs at Super Bowl 55 in 2 weeks. Brady will go up against Patrick Mahomes and the defending champ Kansas City Chiefs. This year's Super Bowl will host 22,000 fans, including 7,500 vaccinated healthcare workers who are getting free tickets. Love it.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, God, Tom Brady. I mean, Tom Brady has been playing in Super Bowls since I was in high school. He's like Putin. He's like the Putin of football. It's like I don't even remember a world before these guys. I'm not a huge football person, but I do not understand. I watched some of that game yesterday. I do not understand why the Packers went for the field goal. Somebody can explain that to me. I'm all ears. By the way, a little bit of trivia. Tampa will be the first team to ever play in a Super Bowl at home. I find that a little bit interesting. But you know what? Is there such thing as a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan? I've never met one. I've met Tom Brady fans, but I don't know anybody who's like a hardcore Tampa football fan. If you are, write in and tell us.
I'm a Tom Brady fan.
I know you are.
He's my guy. Okay, quick status check on the Olympics while we're talking sports. Olympic organizers insisting that the Tokyo Games will take place this summer, a year after they were originally planned. But with 6 months until the opening ceremony, there's still a lot of questions about the feasibility of putting on a major international sporting event in a city that is now seeing its worst wave of coronavirus infections yet. The latest projections do not have Japan reaching herd immunity until months after the Olympics.
Tokyo was put under a state of emergency a couple of weeks ago as it hit about 1,000 new cases a day. Just in context there, the entire death toll in Japan is 5,000 people. That's like 36 hours in the United States. I think that the Olympics, I think they're going to happen. I think there's just too much pressure for them not to. I think NBC alone will probably make them happen. And I really do think, and not to go back on this, and I may have to eat crow on this. I'm putting this out there now. Carlos may have to eat crow coming up. But I think that 6 months from now really is going to look different. And I think that we're underestimating how quickly mass vaccinations are going to turn things around. So again, I say that, I could totally be wrong, but I'm sticking with my sort of relative optimism here.
Listen, Israel is seeing a dramatic decline in hospitalizations, especially for the 60 and older demographic. So
they are crushing it.
They are crushing it. But for us, it is real. I mean, it's such a cliche term, like this race against time, but it is a race against time in terms of the vaccinations because of course we have these two new variants. Two important deaths to note from this past weekend. Larry King died at the age of 87. The legendary broadcaster was hospitalized with COVID and had been moved out of intensive care. If you're too young to have watched King's nightly show on CNN, it's hard to overstate the impact that he had on broadcasting and the news business. He was famous for never preparing for interviews and his casual, everyman style. He interviewed everyone. We're talking presidents to the Dalai Lama to Lady Gaga to Jerry Seinfeld. That clip making its way around the internet.
Oh my God! I was going to ask you. I meant to send that to you actually on Friday, hoping that you had already seen it. But the clip with Seinfeld from 2007, where he asked Jerry Seinfeld why his show was canceled, and Jerry's like, "Canceled? It was the #1 show in history. Can we get a resume in here?" Seinfeld actually came out this weekend and was like, I was just teasing him. You know, he was the man, and he really was truly a legend. Also, Hank Aaron died at the age of 86, one of the greatest home run hitters in the history of Major League Baseball, and among the last living players who have played in the Negro Leagues. Hank Aaron held the home run record for 30 years. Playing most of his career for the Braves. He was known as Hammer and Hank, and there's a petition circulating online for the Atlanta Braves to be renamed the Atlanta Hammers in his honor. I love that. I doubt it'll happen, but I think that's very cool.
So I was chatting with my dad actually, and I was saying I was taking like a pessimistic view of everything, and I was like, oh, how do we even go on with half the country believing that COVID's a hoax and I've never seen a time like this. And my dad actually said, Hank Aaron, he brought this back in this great way. He said, Hank Aaron died recently. And my dad's a huge baseball fan. And he's like, I loved Hank Aaron when I was growing up. He's like, he was my guy. I loved him. I just thought he was great. And he said now that he's passed away and he's seeing all the obits and learning more about his life, he's like, I never realized what he had to go through in terms of just the racism and what he had to fight in terms of the Negro League and all white stadiums or whatever it was. And he's like, that wasn't that long ago. He's like, that was my lifetime, right? He's like, he's like, I was a kid. He's like, I didn't realize it. He's like, but this was, I'm realizing. He said, he's like, I crazily never thought about it. He's like, but that wasn't that long ago. And if we've come this far, he was sort of saying, cheer up.
It's a great point. No, I mean, it's a great point. It's amazing how much things change in a lifetime, I think is a really important point, right?
Yes, I didn't say it eloquently, but when he said it, I kind of was like, Dad, great. I never really thought of it. And like we talk about him and Hank Aaron, for example, watching his obits, but my dad lived through it, a lot of it, at least lived through the fandom of it and was just like, wow, I never realized kind of what he had gone through and incredible where we are now. Okay, that is it, Carlo. It is Monday. That's what you need to know for Monday, January 25th.
Okay, guys, we'll see you tomorrow.